Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy Datman JB. So the reason I wanted to make this video today is because with the recent Game Awards Game of the Year nominee, Astrobot, it kind of made me want to talk about how gaming had felt like it has reached kind of a state of dystopia, where a lot of these games are being pushed not by people who actually like making or playing games, but instead by higher ups that, you know, make all the decisions of how games are published. And this is not no jab at like Astrobot, at least or at least the developers of the game. I think they did a phenomenal job at it, and you know, I definitely think it's a good game. But as you can kind of tell, I don't think it's Game of the Year worthy. But the reason I'm making this video is because when I look at the state of gaming and like how all the games have look at back at all the games that came out this year, you can kind of tell we've kind of reached the pinnacle peak of this type of sort of dystopia we live in for modern gaming. Which is the title of the video, is how modern gaming has reached its peak state of dystopia. Before we get into like how I reached this conclusion, let's kind of address why I kind of also another reason why I'm making this video. Another reason I'm making this video is because with my recent video coming out of where Star Wars: The Republic should you return to the game, a lot of people were showing disinterest in it, talking about how part of it, some people were saying it's woke, some people say don't put enough attention to it, not enjoying what's already been there and what we currently have in the game. Instead just keep on wanting, I mean, more and more, which is understandable. But I feel like players like will keep on wanting to push forward to new games, but don't want to give older games a newer try, especially MMOs, which are kind of like old standing games, especially something like swtor that consistently tries to update its graphics so people come into the game. But even though they want people to come back into the game, by modernizing their graphics, you still get people that are still not content with what other like dedicated companies are putting out. The reason I'm making this video is to kind of like address both sides of how the corporate side is kind of having the players choose a side, while players are looking back at these games that actually care for their audience and are just like, I don't really want it because in my head they're not doing what I want them to do, so there's no point of coming back. What has led up to this point that we are at now? So to take it back, it'd be back around like 9, maybe even 10 years ago. We had the Force Awakens from Star Wars, which in my opinion is really what I think started all of this kind of this dystopia type of world we are like gaming industry world we live in right now. With the release of the Force Awakens, we had Rey that just for some reason just had so much knowledge of like the Force and whatnot, even though having very little training, actually none at all, I don't think, and just being able to just connect with it without struggle. But when we look at people like Anakin, he was 9, 10, had the most Force connection out of everyone, and yet he still didn't know how to use it. At least from our knowledge, didn't know how to use it yet. And that's kind of what is like the starter of all of this. And then after Force Awakens, then we have the Last Jedi, and then we have with like a Marvel side, we have the Avengers, like not Avengers, what is it called, like the Eternals or something like that. And then you have She-Hulk, and you have just many games and movies that just flop. I'm pretty sure they had Terminator, which turned out really bad. Constant just flops and flops. We come down to the current age, or even no, the year before, we start to see promise with Game of the Year being Baldur's Gate 3, which is what some people would call like a woke or all-inclusive game, but it did it for the people that were making the game actually cared about gaming as a whole and cared about the lore for the game they were making, which made it an actual good game. Fast forward to this year, we see the likes of Concord being a all-inclusive, all-body type of game, trying to match with Marvel rivals, Overwatch, Valorant, all very good games. And you could tell what these games' art styles are focused on, which are actual attractive, both male and female characters. And yet, when it comes to Concord, they just throw it out the way and think, nah, we think we know what people want more, or we know that they're gonna take whatever we throw out because we're made by big studios. We are backed by Sony, so people are gonna watch or play what our game is no matter what. And it kind of gets these game studios get these kind of egos, or I don't even think it's them. Again, it's just like it's these higher ups that are being backed by I don't know, I don't really know who to put out these games and just expect people just to accept it. This year is just like, my opinion, the actual peak of this dystopia that we live in, because many people are now seeing all of these games come out. And then after Concord, you have Veilguard, which I played the game myself. I'm already 70% way done with the game. And I'm gonna actually tell you guys, the game is not a bad game. In my opinion, I think it's a really good game, but because they have agendas they have to reach, and I mean to tell you, they have actual agendas to reach, because in the game you can kind of feel it. Like and I get why people don't want to play it at first. I kind of got an off-putting playing the game was at the very beginning, which is very worrisome. You don't want a game that you're about ready to play. Oh, I played Dragon Age Orange, I played Dragon Age 2, I played Inquisition, I played all of it, and you go into the Veilguard and you're like, what is all this stuff that that's included? It just kind of feels off-putting. Like there's men with female cropped tops, and there's chest marks, there's the skin coloring pigment. It's just things that just were never needed in a game, in a video game, and Dragon Age. That's not even the thing you're not even supposed to be thinking of. Like, these are aspects that are things most gamers and game creators wouldn't even be thinking about it. If they were just making the game alone based off of the lore and on the background and the environment that is Dragon Age, people wouldn't even be thinking about this. But because they're higher ups at the game, these gaming studios are telling them, hey, we need to reach this and this quota, so you need to include these aspects in your game. It kind of ruins and dilutes the game that's being made or that's being presented. And you can tell that these are things that just are later implementations, because at the end you have, or during mid game, you have characters that like have random side conversations that kind of open you to the world of being a transgender or whatnot in the game, and they put you in the sense of someone that's ignorant on the topic, so that when you get introduced to it, they like explain to all of it why people are doing this, why this and that. And it just like, it feels very off for a video game in the Dragon Age era. But after all that, I know it sounds weird, but like after those like weird character customization and weird introduction, like talk about or being a transgender, it really becomes a good game once you scratch all of that. But my one other gripe, also I have optimization issues, because I with a 4070 Ti, I get 80 frames or 90 frames with frame generation, like at 1080p. Was really weird is that there were all the factions, most of these different parts of the world felt okay until you went to Treviso, which is one of the areas or one of the cities in Dragon Age. And when you head over there, it's kind of like these are assassins, and it's kind of like they're trying to rip off like Assassin's Creed, like Assassin's Creed 2 and 3 or Brotherhood. And you kind of feel like they're kind of copying them, because everyone there is just like Italian and like have an Italian accent. It just feels very off-putting, because like, why am I in Dragon Age, a game that's like medieval time, and like I'm just hearing some Italian people just talk about I don't just like I didn't feel immersed when I was hearing them, which kind of made me off-putted off one of my starter characters, not starter companions, that comes from that area. Things like Dre, he's the assassin Shadow, not Shadow, whatever. I think it was like a D. It fell off, but after that after we got through that main story missions, it kind of felt a lot like the story didn't feel as bad anymore, and it felt actually vested in these characters. And I felt invested in like most of the other worlds. Like the companions were great in my opinion. I love Nev, Balara. I can't remember the black dude's name. He was the warden. Triv something. I liked, and then I did like the Italian assassin. I liked him. I liked all the characters for the most part. It's just to show that this game, the Veilguard, was a good game, but it got ruined because of its corporate need to include political agendas that just don't in line in the actual game. And then Astrobot to me was just the icing on the top. You have triple A studio, not even triple A, the biggest console makers with Sony making a platformer ad for their PS5, which is a platformer, which is a really good game. Not to get it confused, but I think even Veilguard wins over Astrobot in my opinion. Like Veilguard had actual just so much more, or just like investment into the game. Either Veilguard, Wukong, Metaphor, even Final Fantasy. Those could have all won Game of the Year. A case could be made for Elden Ring, but I don't know how much. It just seemed like it was added bosses. I don't know how much story is really invested, but like all of those games, felt like Game of the Year worthy. Where Astrobot it's just clear it felt paid. It felt paid that a platformer, which Zelda loses, never gets Game of the Year. Mario never gets Game of the Year, at least to my knowledge. But this Astrobot game gets Game of the Year. Like, come on, we had some pretty good games come out this year, and people want to say the player voice doesn't matter as being a top 6 being included. While Wuthering Waves that came out this year it's a mobile game, but platformers could be made mobile games too. We had Angry Bird for the longest. Astrobot was even top 6 or top 5 was nominated, and yet it wins Game of the Year. That just shows like the out of touchness that these higher ups have with the actual player base. They want you to just take in what they're throwing out, no matter how good or bad it is. Be that way they can just throw out more and more stuff, more quantity, but not have any quality to it. And that's the big problem with these games, is that they just try and throw in what's relevant and think it's just gonna work. And that's just not the case nowadays, because people are tired of they're tired of their actual IPs being the ones that get ruined, because they want to throw out their ideas so people can invest in their products or these ideas. It's just multi-level market manipulation, but people aren't buying it. People aren't buying into these games, and that's what kind of is just, to me, what feels like it's peak dystopiatism in the current modern gaming. Because with Concord failing, Veilguard failing, and Outlaws, I forgot to include Outlaws failing as well, it just shows that these companies have lost millions, if not billions, to these companies like studios like Baby Inc. or whatever that's backing these dumb things that are going on. They're getting absolutely obliterated by international companies making the money, players going and buying from those international companies, and standalone companies or crowdfunded games like Ash's Creation, and that's another type of thing. From a dystopia level, I think Wukong is just as bad as things like Concord and Veilguard forcing their things. You have the Chinese government having influence in these games, kind of like getting you used to Chinese history and culture that many people love, but it kind of feels like an ad in itself. They're trying to promote their culture to other people so that their people are more inclined to be like, hey, these people over here, they make good games. Why should I listen to anything America has to say when they make these trash games, when I can go over and go to these Chinese games? And there's nothing to knock on, or not Veilguard, to knock on Wukong, but it's just like, it kind of feels like this type of dystopia. If you really look back and look at it, it's like these are all these options have some type of influence on your mind instead of just being games like they used to be. I don't think there's nearly this type of like influence or like trying to like do all this to try and add things to your mind as there was now. Like now you have all these games just coming out, being made to make your ideas follow one way. And it's just very hard to be a gamer at this time. But like I said, I think this is all-time peak. Once people realize that we're done with being influenced by these companies and we just want games to be made with good stories that talk about morality and humanity and moral topics and ethics like that, like we had with Star Wars, good and bad, Lord of the Rings, greater good, I think. I don't know, even Assassin's Creed, which is you don't need to be the man and the man of the hour to get things done. You can work in the shadows and get what you need to do to be done. Even if people don't recognize what you've done, you can be the one to set a foot forward, which you actually see in like Revelations. Like you're not going to be the one to make change. Like Ezio finds out he's not going to be the one to make the final change. It's going to be Den's. Okay, it's Desmond. My bad. It's Desmond. Like you're not going to be yeah. He finds out Ezio's not going to be the make the change. It's going to be Desmond makes the change. And like just like those type of ideas are all just like these are simple ideas that were installed into these games, and that's all people want. You don't want these political things, game purchases when they look at what they want to buy. And the same thing goes for the movie industry. It's our jobs as gamers to like notice that these things are coming at or happening, and to call it out as you see it, for things that just don't need to be in games and don't have anything to do with the lore. That's the main thing. It's like one thing to like add modern problems or modern topics into these games, but it's another thing to just ignore the lore that comes while adding these things in there. And that's what kind of people are not wanting to see. Like if these things are actual things you want incorporated, then you have to respect the lore in these games, and you have to respect the players that are playing these games if you want to push these ideas. That's just basically what I wanted to talk about. The reason I want to make this video is that we call and see these things out, and we respect the older games that still hold these standards, like swtor. You know, Overwatch kind of feels like it's staying true to their players. Path of Exile, just all of these companies that still care. Lorien Studios, they care for the game and the lore, the game, the players, and the lore that's in these games. They care for all of that. Just like respecting the ones that actually care, and developers that speak out for caring about these games and the lore that make it, and giving those games a shine and a chance. Whether it's from these bigger studios, the smaller indie studios, and standalone games as well. All of that, just try your hardest to just play the games that want to get you in for the game, not the topic that's being discussed in those games. That's how I think it should be. This type of problem should be approached, and how in this peak state of dystopiatism we have in modern gaming, we notice it, and we get rid of it once we see it. As the players, you have the most saying out of anyone, out of the creators, out of the characters themselves, out of all these powers. It doesn't matter. The player has the most option, the most say, because you're the one with the money to give these studios money at the end of the day. So that's the reason I want to make this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.